When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we
It's not exactly what you think, although I appreciate how you stand by me, particularly this month when it is Farwell for Hire month, raising money in support of cystic fibrosis research. And I get to do all kinds of things, and you just stand right by me and help out and help us raise money and make donations, and it's fantastic. And of course, I'm really going to need some support today when I can't even touch it, to be honest with you. It was waiting for me in the studio when I arrived here this morning, and it is a hat of the team that shall not be named. I promised that if our Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot reached $100,000 or a $50,000 take-home, I would wear the hat of the team that shall not be named for the entire Talkback Hour on the show today. And so that's what I'm going to do. If I can, I have to, between now and then, I have to find a way to pick up the hat, not only pick it up, but then put it onto my head. So please stand by me as I do that later today on the show. But the reason I played the song by Ben E. King to start the show today is because I had so much fun with you on All Request Friday, where we played your favorite TV show theme songs by request. And we had a little bit of a theme, if you will, of those theme songs. And that theme was just so much fun. I thought I'd work another theme into the show today. So if you're paying close attention, see if you can find the connecting thread between all of the different songs we play on the show today. And we'll reveal the answer if you can't figure it out before we close things down at 1 this afternoon, okay? So the songs that you hear on the show today will be played with intention, and they all have a common theme. What is that theme? We'll see if you can figure it out. One thing you know about this show is that the minute we start it every day, our phone lines are open, and, well, Mary is already there, quite contrary on a Monday morning.
Oh, no.
Not contrary? Okay.
By you.
Thank you, Mary.
I will always stand by you, and I think you were blessed with pretty good weather on the weekend.
What? I was blessed with the crappiest May weather that ever has been happening.
Well, it wasn't pouring down. What else was...
Mary, no, don't make excuses for the weather person, please.
So, but was it successful?
Who, what now?
Was it successful as far as fundraising?
It was, yes, it was. And for that, I have the Kitchener Fire Department to thank. Like 24 volunteers showed up for our car wash on Saturday. They were unreal. Some of them were on vacation. Some of them came from other fire halls. It didn't matter. They just pitched in and helped out. So despite the freezing cold, we did have a car wash on Saturday. And then yesterday we had our big walk in Waterloo Park. And the incredible, absolutely incredible volunteers that pulled that off. And then a nice barbecue at the lab in downtown Kitchener. Phenomenal stuff. Despite the weather, we raised some good money.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes, but as I say, I'll reiterate it. I will always stand by you. I've got your back.
Thank you, Mary. I appreciate you. Bye-bye. Nice to hear from you this morning. All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. Number 1, King Charles arrives today in Ottawa, marking his first visit to Canada since his coronation 2 years ago. The King will read the throne speech tomorrow, setting the government's priorities for this legislative session. Prime Minister Carney, meantime, met with his Liberal caucus yesterday.
Our government has been elected to do nothing less than define a new economic and security relationship with the United States, and build the strongest economy that works for everyone. Canadians also want their life to become more affordable. They want their communities safer. We will deliver these mandates with urgency and determination. We are going to get going from minute one.
We're going to get going from minute one. King Charles and Camilla touchdown in Ottawa this afternoon. Number 2, students and staff heading back to school today in Walkerton can expect to see increased mental health resources as the community continues to grapple with the deaths of 4 students and a teacher. Matt Eckert, a 33-year-old teacher, and 4 teenage girls were killed in a crash when their SUV collided with a transport truck and another SUV just northeast of London on Friday when they were returning from a sporting event. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Kindness creates a ripple in Cambridge where friends of a woman battling cancer have replaced the roof on her home free of charge. Jamie Caldwell, who works for a local roofing company, learned of his friend's dilemma and called on volunteers to replace the roof this weekend. Number 4, 18 Canadians helped the Buffalo Bandits win the National Lacrosse League Cup. And among those 18 Canadians, 3 players from Kitchener, Chris Cloutier and Dane Smith, each scored 3 goals in Buffalo's win, while goaltender Steve Orleman is also on the team. And the Kitchener Panthers dropped an 8-6 decision yesterday to the London Majors. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. To celebrate National Accessibility Week, Independent Living Waterloo Region and community partners of the Life Made Accessible are hosting this year's Accessibility Trade Show and Conference at Rim Park. It happens on Wednesday between 10 and 8, bringing together innovators, professionals, and experts to showcase the latest advancements in accessibility. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. Quick break. Back with more on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Stayed in bed all morning just to pass the time. There's something wrong here, there can be no denying. One of us is changing, or maybe we've just stopped trying. And it's too late, baby, now it's too late. Though we really did try to make it.
Oh my goodness, from Stand By Me to It's Too Late, and some Carole King on the show this morning. Maybe the theme is just all of Farzi's faves. I feel weird saying that, but that's the name I gave to my playlist at home. I don't know why, because I like alliteration. I really feel weird, though, referring to myself by the nickname that others have given me. Anyway, I love me some Carole King, and It's Too Late on the show this morning. Let's get back to the phones. JB with us. Hey, JB, good morning.
Good morning. Question. Rogers TV, they stop at noon, right?
No.
No, they keep going?
They do.
Okay, good, because I was going to say, if they stop at noon, how are we supposed to trust that you're going to wear the hat the whole hour?
Listen, first of all, you settle down there for a second. I am a man of my word. You know this about me. Come on.
I didn't say that you weren't. I'm just saying.
Well, how would you know? Because
I know you're a man of your word, but I also know how much you loathe my favorite hockey team.
I can't even. I can't. Like I am having a hard time. I've got a pair of scissors here that I've been using to like kind of nudge the hat along the table to get it out of my way because it was sitting front and center when I got here this morning. I'm not looking forward to noon, but regardless, I would not tell you a lie. The hat goes on at noon, and yes, we are on Rogers TV right through until 1 o'clock. You will see me in said hat on the show today.
Will there be photographic evidence for those that don't have Rogers TV?
Absolutely, there will.
Perfect.
That's what social media was made for, JB.
For humiliation? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Take care.
All right, buddy. You too. Thanks very much for the call this morning. Trevor sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. And he says, Mike, I know that you're going to have to wear that stupid, ugly hat. I feel your pain. I have hated that team my whole life. I was forced for 2 years to watch them because my nephew played 2 years in that uniform. You need to up the price when it comes to a challenge like that. Just wear it backwards so we don't have to see the logo. I'm tempted to do that, wear it backwards, but I won't. I'll wear. I made a commitment. Me and my big mouth said to you, if we get the 50-50 jackpot to $100,000 or a $50,000 take home, I will wear the hat of the team that shall not be named for the entire Talkback Hour. We reached that plateau on Friday afternoon. So this is the next show, and here we are. Today from noon until 1, I will wear the hat of the team that shall not be named. How I'm going to get it on my head, because I can't even touch the damn thing, I'm not sure. But I'm going to do it because I made a promise, and you got us to $100,000 in the jackpot. So thank you for that. By the way, the final draw will be made on Friday. cf5050.ca. You can still get your tickets. Get in on the fun. Jackpot now worth more than $104,000 or a $52,000 plus take-home prize. And that means $52,000 plus for cystic fibrosis research. Something on a much more serious note that I wanted to touch on with you today, because there was a rally in Uptown Waterloo yesterday where police presence was required, I think just as a precaution more than anything. But this was described as a pro-Palestinian rally in Uptown Waterloo. And we talked about this on the show last week, and not long after we finished our segment talking about bubble zones, these are the zones that Toronto and some other municipalities, Vaughan, Brampton, Ottawa, Calgary, have created to prevent protests from happening too close to places of worship, childcare centers, schools, etc. Just create these kind of safety zones or bubble zones around, much like we had around hospitals during COVID, much like we still have around abortion clinics by way of example. And when we talked about it on the show, I was reminded why I haven't spent a great deal of time talking on the show about the ongoing war in Gaza, because, look, I'm not going to claim to be an expert. I've done as much reading as I can, but you're only going to learn so much about this complicated, decades-long history from reading. This brings out passion in people, and it brought out passion in people last week when we talked about it on the show. And you may recall afterwards, we got a call from Peter, who made reference to one of the original protests that led to this bubble zone being created in Toronto.
The protest that was happening in front of the synagogue in Toronto was happening because they were holding a real estate event in the synagogue selling occupied Palestinian land as real estate. So
Peter and I went back and forth on email a little bit after that phone call. First of all, that's not necessarily the case. There was not necessarily something going on inside that synagogue in Toronto where land that had been stolen was being put up for sale. That's Peter's claim, and the claim of many of the protesters who did engage in protest outside that synagogue. But others inside say that's not what this was about at all. Even a rabbi who was hosting a similar event at another synagogue said it's got nothing to do with that. So what we have here, believe it or not, is two sides to a story. And something else I would say about that is, let's just say, for example, that that is what was going on inside the synagogue. So when you then come in a large crowd outside that synagogue because you're upset about what's happening inside, are you really protesting or are you confronting another group? Like, isn't that very similar to rival gangs looking at one another's warehouses, clubhouses, whatever it might be? Oh, we don't know, or we don't like what's going on inside there. We're gonna gather outside there and intimidate those inside that building. Might be a bit of a loose comparison, but I think it's apt nonetheless. And so, thinking about this more, I considered, because Peter made me aware of that rally that was happening in Uptown Waterloo yesterday, which is a rally that, again, required a police presence to maintain order, keep peace, whatever the case may be. And I had said to Peter in our email conversation that I fully respect his right to protest and his desire to do so. Like, be so passionate about a cause that you get behind it like this, by all means. But I'm wondering why in Uptown Waterloo's public square, for example, because I would submit to you that the many Jewish people in this community who feel threatened, unsafe, intimidated by that kind of protest are not the people that you want to make uncomfortable in this. Are you? Are those the people that you want to make feel uncomfortable, the people who have been living here peacefully for decades, contributing to your community, et cetera? Or do you want to take your protest to Parliament Hill and try to get our legislators who are just getting back to work in the House of Commons this week, let them know that you want a ceasefire, you want action in the Middle East, something like that, right? You want to put pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government. Maybe that's where your protest could be or should be directed. I'm just not sure. And I know that folks are being made to feel uncomfortable by this because they've told me in the days after the October 7th attack and the taking of hostages from Israel, I ran into a woman I hadn't seen in a very long time. And it was just a casual encounter. And she said how concerned she was, how much fear she felt, how they were increasing security at their own synagogue because of what had just happened. And look, you can make your neighbor uncomfortable, and that's okay. I guess protest should be uncomfortable, but you have to acknowledge that that's what you're doing. And I just, it's a choice, is what it comes down to. It's a choice. And those who decided to rally in the streets of Uptown Waterloo yesterday made that choice. That's fine, but I hope you recognize that there are consequences or implications to the choice that you made for the people that live right next door to you, go to the same schools as you, shop in the same stores as you. It's really complicated out there. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Real tight for time before the 9:30 news, but Paul's been waiting on the line. I want to give him a chance to talk. I got about 30 seconds, Paul.
Okay, I remember well that day in October a few years back when the Israeli military invaded Gaza, attacking a peaceful music festival, slaughtering people and taking hostages. Are we going to rewrite history, or is that fact? Who invaded who?
Yeah, no, listen, Paul, I get you. Yeah, your point is what?
We allow these people to protest in support of Hamas here in Canada. Get rid of them all.
Okay, I get. Listen, I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that they're protesting in support of Hamas. But again, this is where we're at, and I just wanted to, make clear that the actions that we're taking have an impact on our neighbors right here. And I don't think our neighbors here in Waterloo Region had anything to do with what happened on October the 7th or since. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers. Everybody knows a little Louie Louie by the Kingsmen as we continue playing intentional music on the show today, weaving together a wee little theme. We had fun with a theme on Friday during our All Request Friday, and I had so much fun with that I thought, we're going to do another little theme, but you got to figure out what the thread is that connects the songs we play on the show today, from Stand By Me to It's Too Late to Louie Louie by the Kingsmen. Nathan sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. And prior to this song said, they're all from movies. I said, no, that's not the answer that we're looking for today. Just have some fun with it. I'll let you know at the end of the show what the intentional music was all about today. Diving into our conversations this morning, this is an ongoing nuisance in a Kitchener neighborhood. Have you heard the train horns? I don't think you even have to be right in the Lancaster and Victoria area to hear the ding-dang train horns that just keep going off at all hours of the day. Michelle Stelter is a resident of Kitchener, has been affected by this, and joins the show this morning. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning.
What's it like?
Well,
I know that's a loaded question, right?
It is. Yes. It's been disturbing and aggravating. I guess it's been over a month now, and I've had to resort to wearing earplugs to get some sleep. And I just, it's hard because I have a physical labor job and sleep is very important. So when I'm deprived, it can be dangerous and difficult to do my job.
When are you hearing the blasts from this train horn?
You hear them 24 hours a day, but they do seem to be louder at night because perhaps there's less ambient noise around, or you're sleeping and it's a startling wake-up call. So it is 24 hours a day, and I can't say for sure if it's all the trains or if it's just the CN freight trains, but considering the scheduling, it does seem like it's most trains that have to blow the horn there.
What have you learned, Michelle, about the why behind this? Why are we hearing these train horns? And I'll tell you, I can hear them from my place too, and I'm not exactly all that close to Lancaster and Victoria.
Exactly.
But yeah,
I've heard, people from 6 kilometers away can hear it. It's incredible how far the noise reaches.
Absolutely. So what have you learned about why this is happening?
In the beginning, when I reached out to Stephanie Stretch, the councillor for Ward 10, apparently it was construction. But when I kept hearing the horns and it was supposed to end within a week, I actually went to the site myself and tried to find the construction, which I couldn't. But apparently it is. That's what it is. They reached out to Metrolinx, and Metrolinx has said that construction is in the area, or when there is construction in the area, then by regulation they have to blow the horns for extra safety precautions. So then I can't say for sure if it's CN construction or other construction in the area. But apparently it's supposed to end by the end of May.
And how do you feel about that by the end of May? I mean, as I understand it, the work was supposed to be done already. So do you have confidence that it will finish in time?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure about that. But I think for me, what's even more important is what can we do about this in the future? Because I feel like, there's obviously a noise bylaw. How can big operators get away with breaking the noise bylaw for such a long duration? And then also considering how many people are going to be moving into the inner city now. I mean, the city of Kitchener is developing, and is this going to be something that all residents will have to live with going forward? So for me, I would really like to see a different solution, like have a human person attendant there overnight, especially to clear the trains rather than blowing the horns.
Have you had any success? I know that MPP for the area Kitchener Centre, Ashland Clancy, has been involved to some degree as well. Any movement, Michelle, that you think could lead us in this direction for a future solution?
I haven't seen any movement, although I myself did write a letter including Metrolinx, CN, and Ashland and Stephanie. So I asked if they could collaborate on thinking about the future and to see if we can reduce the amount of noise. So far it's media, but nothing from their end.
How do you feel about how this has all worked out? Have you been involved by contacting your councillor or your MPP before? Have you been active in these sorts of things?
Not so much. No, I think this for me was kind of more of a personal issue, and I'm hoping that other people, were also concerned. And it turns out that I think Stephanie had over 100 complaints from residents. So plus the people who haven't said anything yet. So I'm sure there's hundreds of people who are annoyed. So yeah, I haven't heard any movement forward.
I'm sure you're right about that, Michelle. As you mentioned, hearing from people as far as 6 kilometers away, I'll bet you there are dozens and dozens who have just tolerated it and not made any complaint at this point.
Right. Yeah, and then also, I'm definitely supportive of train travel. I would love, the two-way frequent transit between Kitchener, Toronto, or this whole corridor. I would love that. And I also believe, transporting goods by train, it seems like a really good solution, but it has to be like a collaborative solution for everybody.
Michelle, I thank you for raising the issue and making time for the show today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Michelle, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Michelle Stelter is a Kitchener resident who has raised the issue. I was trying to think of a punny word to use there. But look, the bottom line is that these train horns are going at all hours of the day, on all days of the week while this work is being done at the crossing. Lancaster and Victoria. And the work was supposed to have been completed. We had a story at kitchener.citynews.ca in late April, which said that the work would be ongoing for a few weeks, which would take us to about the second week of May. We are into the final week of May, and still there has been no end to the blasting of the train horns. I got a tag on X from William this morning, at Farwell_WR, who said he heard these horns for the first time yesterday morning. I heard them not for the first time, the second time on Saturday morning. And I remember the first time we had heard them many, many weeks ago, probably near the beginning of all of this work. We wondered the same thing, like, what's with the train horn all of a sudden? And it's way off in the distance from where we live. I wouldn't call it a particular nuisance, but it was definitely there at strange times, and we couldn't quite figure out why. Not disrupting my sleep or anything like that, but there are two problems here. One is that the work did not get completed in time. And so I don't think it's being met with the necessary urgency considering its impact on the neighborhood. So that's one thing. I think Metrolinx has got to get its train in gear here, or its caboose in gear, and get this work finished, because it's disrupting a neighborhood. It's having a pretty significant impact. That's part number one. But there is a part two to this that I believe could help us to what Michelle was talking about in the future. I think there is some missing ingredients of common sense in all of this, and I can get into that a little bit after this quick timeout. But I'd love to hear from you too. Are you hearing the train horns? What impact are they having on you in your neighborhood? Let me know on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I'm hoping that other people, were also concerned, and it turns out that there were, I think Stephanie had over 100 complaints from residents, plus the people who haven't said anything yet. So I'm sure there's hundreds of people who are annoyed. I haven't heard any movement forward.
There is a reason for the train horns going off at all hours of the day, every day, and that is construction. And with the construction happening, a warning sign that is in place was taken down to allow access to do the necessary work. As such, without the warning sign, the trains, as they cross the tracks, must blast their horns. I'm wondering if it has impacted you in any way. And to get to the point made by Michelle Stelter in that conversation we just had, is there a longer-term solution to this? I say absolutely yes, but I'd love to hear from you, and then I'll share my 2 cents on it. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I have a contrary point of view.
Sure.
First of all, I live in Cambridge, and when I moved into this development, it was built up near the train tracks. So when I first moved in here a little over 20 years ago, I heard the train around 2 or 3 in the morning, woke me up every morning. Like I'm a light sleeper. But over the years, I got used to it. But my contrary point of view is a city government in all these areas, that is the problem, because they zone it for residential all around the railway tracks and around airports and everything. And when they zone it residential, and then the developers come in and put in all these subdivisions, then the people complain. And of course, the politicians listen to the constituents because they vote. But the trains were there first, the airport was there first. It's just a bunch of nonsense solely at the feet of our local politicians. And there's nothing we can do about it but try and convince the railways and the airports to spend all kinds of money monitoring it and doing all these things afterwards. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
All right, Dave. Thank you very much. It's no question that we have grown up in areas we previously did not grow or did not exist in terms of housing development, et cetera. But I think there's another element to this, too. Preston Paul, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
All right.
Good man.
Is your brain going to be able to handle that hat on your head?
Paul, please, no. I think actually, if I put the hat on my head, which I have to do because I said I would at noon today, my brain might fall out. I might not be able to finish the last hour together.
Oh, I'm having a laugh down here. I can't wait.
All right, Paul, well, you hang in there because it's going to happen at noon today.
Yeah, so I live in Preston. I'm only a couple of blocks from the Toyota train that comes back and forth.
Sure.
And that horn blows all night long. And we have safety arms at Concession, Bishop, Montrose, and they still blow that horn at night. And I actually enjoy it. It's kind of soothing for me, but for people in the neighborhood, I'm sure it's quite annoying.
You know what? I get you, Paul. I appreciate that call. There is something about that train horn in the distance, a little bit different if it's closer. But see, did you hear what Paul said? This gets to what I'm thinking on this, right? We've got the safety arms, we've got this and that, but that train horn still goes in the middle of the night. Lorraine, good morning.
Oh, hi. When I graduated from nursing, I moved home and I worked shift work. And when my brothers and sisters would make a noise, I would yell at them to be quiet. I was sleeping because I was working nights. Then I moved back to Hamilton and I was working nights, trying to sleep in a hot, hot day, no air conditioning, windows open, lying on the floor of my mattress. And the city came along and using a jackhammer outside my window. I thought, I can't yell at these guys. I guess I better sleep. And I did. And ever since then, I'm able to block out noises.
You can sleep through anything.
Train, right beside our subdivision in Cambridge. That was not very far from where I was sleeping, and you get yourself used to it, as that other fellow said.
Lorraine, I appreciate that call, and I understand that. When my beloved moved to Kitchener from her place in Preston and realized that my place wasn't far from the expressway, she wondered how I could handle the noise. I'm like, I don't even hear it anymore. So I can understand building up a tolerance to it, but there's still a missing piece, and it's got to do with common sense. And I'll share that and take more of your calls right after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. What to do with those blasted train horns that keep on blasting in a Kitchener neighborhood, Victoria and Lancaster area? Back to the phones for Ken. Good morning, Ken. Hello, Ken. Well, Ken has heard so many train horns, he can't hear me anymore. That's okay. It will allow me a moment here to share with you what I believe to be an underlying issue here, and that is common sense, or the complete and utter lack thereof. I recall, and it was an awful story. Fortunately, everyone survived, but you may remember as well as I, several years ago, when a woman with a child was struck by a train at that same crossing, Lancaster and Victoria in Kitchener, right? Again, the good news is nobody died. There were obviously, you don't get hit by a train without suffering some level of injury. But what I learned then fascinated the ever-loving heck out of me, because it's a level crossing. The arms can come down at street level to prevent vehicles from going across the tracks when the trains are there, et cetera. But you can't stop the people. All you can do is put on the flashing lights, bring down the cross arms, ring the bell, blare the horn, whatever. But if somebody decides they can beat the train on foot or on a bicycle, they can still take that risk and try to beat the train. They, even following that particular incident in Kitchener, installed on the sidewalk a change in the sidewalk surface. So, like kind of, I don't know what to really call it. I forget the name, but, a bumpy sidewalk, a piece on the sidewalk, so that you knew if you were looking at your phone and not paying attention to all of the things, maybe you had earbuds in, whatever, you would recognize as you're walking along that the surface beneath your feet just changed, and that might alert you to something that you need to be aware of. It might. all of this, what we're getting with these train horns is the quote-unquote abundance of caution, right? So if the train is, it doesn't matter if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and there's not a single vehicle or person in sight, they have to blare this horn by regulation, because if they don't, liability, right? It's trying to protect us from ourselves. And I would just like to think, I would really like to think that when we are disrupting a neighborhood for as long as we have been, and longer than we said we would be because they're behind on their work, can we just please, after, say, 10 o'clock at night, stop with the ding-dang train horn? Like, we are smart enough people. So please, can we stop with the spoon feeding and think, won't somebody think of the neighborhood? Allow the folks some peace and quiet from the train horns that don't really need to blare. Like, really, do they need to blare at 3 in the morning? Of course they don't. But they do because of regulation and abundance of caution and the risk of liability. We can fix this. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
You ain't nothing but a hound dog, you're crying all the time. You ain't nothing but a hound dog, crying all the time. Well, you ain't never caught a rabbit and you ain't no friend of mine. Well, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie. Yeah, they said you was high class. Well, that was just a lie.
A little bit of Elvis Presley, the king. Thank you very much. Hound Dog on the Mike Farwell Show this Monday morning, where the music is tied together by a common thread. The question for you is, what is that thread? No Mark, who called in and guessed they're all Grammy-nominated artists or songs. Not correct. They are not all from movies either. But we'll reveal the answer later on, and you're welcome to send me an email, mike@570news.com, or call in and make your guess with Devin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass today. So far, on this Monday morning, we've played Stand By Me, It's Too Late, Louie Louie, and now Hound Dog. There is a common theme between the songs, and we'll play some more for you as the show goes on. I came across a story last week that was, quite frankly, irresistible to me, because it was a story about the Sunshine Girl. And I know you maybe just rolled your eyes, or you thought to yourself, the Sunshine Girl? Do they still publish pictures of Sunshine Girls? And maybe you just realized, oh yeah, the Sunshine Girl. I've heard of that before because it's so well known. You might not even know what newspaper it's in, but you know that the Sunshine Girl exists. And yes, indeed it does. But what made this story interesting is that Sunshine Girls, who have in the past posed, are finding their photos being reused today, many years after they first posed. And of course, as you might imagine, they have moved on to different parts of their lives. Jan Wong is a media critic and joins us on the show to talk about it. Jan, good morning.
Good morning.
When I say Sunshine Girl, what pops into your mind?
It feels like the 1970s or something, like the Playboy era. And Playboy, I think, has now gone under as a magazine. So it's so last century. It's so dated, and it's so weird that they're reprinting old photos.
But Jan, we only read Playboy for the interviews, remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. That's right. The interviews.
But your point is so spot on. When I came across this story last week, which is why I found it rather irresistible, I thought, oh yeah, the Sunshine Girl. I haven't thought of that in a very long time. And then to your point, why is it still a thing? How is that? What does this tell you perhaps about the state of the tabloid newspaper industry or media in general?
I know. I think it says, wow, they're still in that really old era where people bought newspapers. But I don't know why, because I'm not speaking personally, but I think you can see a lot of porn online, right? Do you know? I don't know. I've just heard this.
I've heard the same thing. Much like Playboy was for the interviews, I've heard that you can access pornography on the interwebs.
Yeah,
yes.
So that's why it's sort of interesting. Like, what kind of person is clicking on this? Obviously, they're doing it because they get clicks. But what kind of person is clicking on old, like, I mean, really old, not last week old, like years old Sunshine Girl? So it's just weird to me. I don't understand what's going on.
There is a conversation to be had, too, I think, around the impact that these recirculated photos have on the women who first posed for them. I mean, if you did this, 10 years ago, and it's coming back into circulation today or being republished perhaps even on the pages of the newspaper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe you're now a school teacher.
Right.
Which means your grade 3 class can look at pictures of you in a bikini, sticking out your bum or your hips or something online. And I think, when young women do that, it's nice because they're usually very beautiful. It's the peak of their glory. So good for them. But you don't expect it, when you're settling down, or maybe you've become a nun. I mean, who knows? Right? So I think and I know that they must have signed away permission. You always do. They always, before they take your picture, they give you a form and you just sign it, because you're not thinking, oh, you're going to reprint this, when I'm married, and, it's just weird.
I couldn't agree more. And you just touched on something that I think is critical in all of this, and that is the waiver that was likely signed. So where's the teachable moment here? Is there responsibility on the part of the publisher to make clear, or maybe to even not repurpose the photos? Or is the responsibility on the participant in the photo shoot to recognize that, hey, 20 years from now, this may still be in circulation?
I think it's on the publisher. I mean, really, those young women no one could have foreseen. I mean, the publisher's responsible, but in defense of publishers, they didn't see it coming either, that there would be a time when, your newspaper would be dying and you were scrounging around trying to get clicks, and you didn't even have money to hire a photographer anymore, so you can't get fresh ones. So I guess it's actually both sides couldn't have anticipated this, and it's just a symptom of the really sorry state of Canadian and media in general, Canadian media and media everywhere, that they have to go back and use these old pictures. I mean, how pathetic is that?
You just touched on another part that I had forgotten from the story, and that is, yes, the industry is in such a state that the tabloid newspaper doesn't even employ the photographers and or have the studio anymore, because, it's not part of the overall budget, is it? Yeah,
no photographers. No studios, nothing. It doesn't even take much these days. You just get an iPhone, and most people could take a decent picture, but they don't even have that. So, wow, pretty low. I don't know what's next. What do you think? What's going to happen?
Well, I think what's part of it's already here, and this does freak me out a little bit insofar as AI and artificially generated images, right?
You put your finger on it.
Yeah.
Next week, they will be fake.
It won't be the Sunshine Girl anymore. It'll be the AI girl, Jan.
Oh, that's good. And will people still click on it? I bet they will.
I bet they will. There's something going on there for those clicks.
Oh, my God. So sad and so funny.
It is both, I think. I agree. Appreciate you being a part of the conversation today, Jen.
Well,
thanks for being here.
Thank you to your producer. She really tracked me down, and she was very persistent.
I like that.
To her.
I like to hear that. She's working hard for us. That's great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Jan Wong is a media critic, and Justine Fraser, look at that. That was like it was planted, because Justine's supervisor is in the other room listening to this right now, how hard she worked to track down Jan. But that's great. And here's why the effort was so gargantuan today, because we originally had scheduled one of those former Sunshine Girls who said, I don't really care for my photo being reused. I've got a thriving real estate business now in Windsor, and I don't want those photos coming back up again. So to Jan's point, after you've participated in said photo shoot, many years later, you move on, you become a real estate agent, you become a teacher, You become a nun. And these photos resurface again, published again by the same tabloid that first took those photos many years ago. Where does the responsibility lie here? On the part of the publisher? On the part of the photo shoot participant, the Sunshine Girl? Would love to get your thoughts on this. I've got a few, and I'd like to hear from you too. Maybe you're asking yourself, really, Farwell? The Sunshine Girl still exists? Apparently it does. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Is it on the publisher? Is it on the participant? Where do you lie on this one? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I guess it's actually both sides couldn't have anticipated this, and it's just a symptom of the really sorry state of Canadian and media in general, Canadian media and media everywhere. They have to go back and use these old pictures. I mean, how pathetic is that?
It is a little bit of an indictment of the state of media today, isn't it? Jan Wong is a media critic, joins us this morning to talk about the recirculation of old Sunshine Girl photos. And this came to light in a really interesting story I read last week from the participants in the photo shoots who say, I don't like that these photos are being recirculated because I've moved on. I'm at a much different place in my life. I've got a professional career now, and these photos don't belong in the public realm anymore. What do you make of this? And the fact that maybe even, as Jan and I kind of laughed about, the Sunshine Girl even exists still today. That's still a thing? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Bev sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. Says, my best friend was one of the first Sunshine Girls before the more risque pictures. Interesting. You know, Bev, what strikes me is that reminds me of a buddy of mine. I used to work with him at a radio station a long time ago in a place not very far from here. And he was once a Sunshine boy. And believe you me, we took advantage of every opportunity to tease him about that. Sometimes the photo even found its way into the studio just to give him a little nudge. You remember when you were a Sunshine boy? And it was far from risque as well. But remember, folks often, in our buddy's case that we used to work with, he did it as a means of elevating his profile, helping out in his career to some respect because he got publicity in some way for whatever that's worth. It's possible that many of the Sunshine Girl participants are doing that as well. But the issue today is the recirculation of those photos. And the first thing that popped into my mind is, how many times have we talked about the sorts of things that we post on the internet today? And once it's on the internet, it's there forever. So that was kind of my first thought on this. You did the photo shoot, and you probably did it at a time in your life when you looked as good as you're ever going to look, but why would you expect it to be buried forever? The other side of that coin is, I think in some cases, we get a little bit of control over the photos that we post online. Can we lock down a profile so a prospective employer couldn't find it? That sort of thing. I don't know. I tend to think that once it's out there on the internet, it can resurface anywhere, no matter how hard we try. But I find it so interesting. Where does the responsibility lie? On the publisher or on the person who participated in the photo shoot? Joey on the phone. Good morning, Joey.
Hey, Michael. Thanks so much for taking the call.
Thanks for making it.
Sunshine boy in '85.
You were?
Yeah, and I have no problem if it's distributed today. In fact, I'm quite proud of the pose. It was all in good taste. So I just wanted to put that out to you.
Yeah, listen, and thanks for that, Joey. I really appreciate it. It's like my buddy that I used to work with. We had laughs with him, not at his expense. We all laughed about it, did the same thing. He knew why, he did it for a reason. He's got no problem with it being out there still today, and he is onto a very successful broadcasting career. Some of these ladies are saying, hey, listen, I've moved on. You should move on too and stop recirculating the photos. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. What would you pay for a tin of tobacco? Without the tobacco in it. Look, I'm not trying by any stretch of the imagination to get you to engage in nasty vices, but some people like a little bit of chew. And back in the day, it was, of course, as you know, far more common and popular than it is even today. Well, Miller and Miller Auctions in New Hamburg auctioned off this weekend an old tobacco tin. And what made this one particularly special, well, two things I think made this one particularly special. One is the condition that it was in, and the other is that it kind of crossed collector pursuits here. One is, just the collection of antiques. The other, the fact that this particular tobacco tin had on the front of it an image of a baseball player. It was called 3 Strikes Tobacco. So obviously the baseball player fits into that. And again, the tin was in immaculate condition. It was found in a Niagara area home about 15 years ago during renovations. And the couple that found it had just kind of kept it as a knickknack in their living room before thinking, well, maybe, just maybe, this is worth something. We're hearing more and more about antiques and collectibles. We should find out what it's worth. So to Miller and Miller Auctions of New Hamburg, the tin goes. And it was figured that it might go for as much as $10,000. But instead this weekend, as I asked you at the beginning, how much would you pay for a tobacco tin? How about $55,000? That is what a Vancouver man, 75 years of age and a practicing lawyer, paid for the antique tobacco tin at an auction in New Hamburg this weekend. $55,000. I mentioned that he was a practicing lawyer because he told the Globe and Mail that you can't go shopping like this without keeping practicing. And apparently his wife gave him a very thorough frown when she found out that he spent $55,000 on a tobacco tin. It was found in the walls of a home in the Niagara area during a renovation, and the couple that found it just turned it into a $55,000 auction item. The man who bought it has a nice knickknack, I guess. The couple who sold it are putting $55,000 into their tax-free savings account. How do you like that? Speaking of $55,000, we got to be getting close. I'm going to check the 50-50 jackpot right now. And we are over $105,000 total. Take-home prize, almost $53,000. You might get up to $55,000. I think you will by the end of the week. You can get your tickets at CF5050.ca. Get in on that big jackpot. Take-home prize now, almost $53,000. CF5050.ca. And yes, because that take-home jackpot is worth more than $50,000 now, I will, for the final hour of the show today during Talkback, wear a hat of the team that shall not be named. It's killing me. The hat's sitting over there. I can't even touch it. But I will put it on for the final hour of the show today because that jackpot got as high as it is. You can get it even higher. Help us fund cystic fibrosis research, CF5050.ca. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. This sounds a little bit like the Thrill Is Gone. We are, it's B.B. King, by the way. I got the right one, right? Devin Robertson's giving me the thumbs up in the other room. We're tying our music together with a common thread today. Suzanne already sent an email. She got it right. But I'm not going to reveal the answer till later in the show, between noon and 1, when I have to wear that stupid hat. But that's for later. Right now, we've got some Waterloo Region royalty in the room with us because they have just been inducted into our Waterloo Region Hall of Fame. You can laugh all you want. You can be as humble as you want, but not everybody gets inducted into the Waterloo Region Hall of Fame. Very pleased to be joined by Anne Benedetti, nominated and inducted in field lacrosse. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike. Wonderful to be here.
And Ken Sealing is with us as well. Do I need to even mention one of the things that you have done, sir, through life?
You don't have to do any.
Okay, I won't do any of that then. This guy named Ken Sealing is in studio with us as well. And let me start with you. How did it feel to be inducted into the Waterloo Region Hall of Fame?
You know, I got to say, first off, we're sitting beside Ken Sealing, and we were inducted into the Hall of Fame in his museum. So it's one thing, Mike, to say, "Why does it feel to be inducted into the Hall of Fame?" How does it feel to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with Ken Sealing in Ken Sealing's museum? So it was fantastic, and I think a lot of us we're doing the things we love. I'm fortunate to be an athlete, lucky to be able to build the community around that, and really to be recognized for that. By your community, with your family there, with, friends and family from the region, and really to be able to have, 5 minutes to say thank you for that. Like, who gets that in life? And we're lucky to be sitting here having done it. So it was wonderful.
It's pretty neat to have you here today, Anne, because of your lacrosse history and the reason that you were inducted. And we just mentioned on the show earlier today, the Buffalo Bandits winning the NLL Cup and Kitchener connections galore, right? Dane Smith on the team, Chris Kluche on the team, Steve Orleman on the team, Steve Dietrich Chugger, the general manager of the Buffalo Bandits, lots of local connections. What got you into lacrosse originally?
Well, it's a great story because I think growing up in this area and, the Indigenous connections were here with, when I was, obviously it was near Brantford, we played a lot there. We're exposed to it. I started out as a basketball player, but in this area, always was aware of lacrosse and the tradition both here, Ontario, and Canada. And then when I was in university, I switched. I had an ability. You can't see me, Mike, but if I stand up, I'm not the tallest gal in the room. And so it was a great transition. And it was really like, when you find something that just fits perfectly and it comes back to where you came from and it also builds into your future. And that's how lacrosse felt for me. And just a wonderful combination of people, opportunity, and then a great sport to tie it together. It was wonderful.
Ken, I love the way that Anne just put that originally, where she was inducted into the Hall of Fame with Ken Sealing in the Ken Sealing Museum. So Ken Sealing, how did that feel for you?
Well, it's a bit of a different experience, but I want to say, first of all, to Anne, that I admire particularly in lacrosse. I remember taking my son, who was a hockey player in other sports, out to for lacrosse, and he came home and said, "Dad, I don't want to do that anymore. It's too rough." So I admire people that play lacrosse. No, it was a great experience for me. My life's been tied up in this region, and I have two brothers in the Hall of Fame already, so they're in the sports category. And I have a grandfather who should be there because he put this region on the map in agriculture and cattle and chickens and things, sort of thing. So I felt pretty honored by it, and to be recognized by your own peers is really great.
You mentioned the family name, Ken, and your brothers being in for sports, I would assume. Yes. Yeah, and so for you, though, it's community service, and it always has been community service. What makes serving the community something that was so important to you?
Well, I think there's a payback to you. I mean, a payback to the community, but there's a payback to you. You get some satisfaction, a great deal of satisfaction for doing things for other people. And when you're working at the local level, you have some measure of control. You can see what you're doing. You're out in the community all the time. People can reflect on what you do. They tell you if you don't like it, but more often than not, you get reinforced in what you do. So you have a good sense of the kinds of things that you do, what they do to the community, and how they make the community a better place. And I mean, I always said I got into public life because I wanted to leave a better place for my children, my grandchildren. And I think that's happened along the way. I'd like to think it has.
What keeps you ticking today?
Well, people say, are you happy in retirement? And I say, well, I'm a bit schizophrenic. There's a half of me that would still like to be active in watching things, and there's another half of me that says there's new issues and new problems, and a new generation needs to solve them. So I keep an eye on things. I think it's not a great time in public life at any level of government right now, and it's, I think, a little bit distressing and disturbing to follow some of the things that are going on. But I like to think that you have to be optimistic that things ebb and flow, and that maybe things will start to correct themselves in the future again. And so there are still lots of good things going on, lots of good people doing good things, and it's great to encourage them to do it.
And for you, I know that nobody enters into a pursuit with the idea that someday they'll be inducted into a local Hall of Fame, or any Hall of Fame for that matter. But post-career, what keeps you moving today?
You know, it's a great thing you mentioned, Mike, and what was always a big motivator for me was my father's a big athlete, and Ken mentioned his brothers and his father. My dad was a big soccer player, and so my dad was inducted into the Cambridge Sports Hall of Fame. And when I was a kid, my dad had all of his memorabilia from all his teams, and it was this great motivator for me. And, you know, at the time when you're a kid, you think it's motivating you to be a great athlete and you want to, you know, win championships and do these things. And what I've realized over time, to answer your question, is that it was more of a motivator for me to follow my dad's footsteps as a great leader, great community builder. My dad spent as much time coaching kids soccer as he did playing for Team Canada. And for me, you see that, and, you know, he's a wonderful father, he's a great husband, and you see that and you say, wow, I thought I was trying to follow in my dad's footsteps to win championships. And no, I want to follow in his footsteps to be a great person and to continue to do that. And luckily, sports provided a framework for me to start, but it's taken me in a million directions. And really, it's kind of bringing that framework to everything I do and to looking forward. And, you know, when you sit here with Ken and the history he has, it's a great roadmap to reach out and think, you know, we all come from one area. I come from sports, but the community impact you can make following in the footsteps of so many wonderful people, and that's what the Hall of Fame's about, and appreciate being able to talk about it.
Yeah,
I can say I think that good athletes and star athletes are actually role models for our young people, and that's why I think it's important we recognize them and see what they do, because I think our young people need role models. I think there's so many poor role models out in the world these days, but I think we have to have good ones, and athletes are just a natural place for good role modeling.
I'm glad you said that, Ken, because sometimes I think sports gets a bit of a bad rap at times, and there are high-profile stories that maybe give it that rap, but you're absolutely right. It's a very good place to find role models, and you and others who were inducted can certainly be that inspiration. Congratulations to the both of you, and thanks very much for spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, Mike. It's wonderful.
Ann Benedetti, Waterloo Region Hall of Fame inductee in lacrosse. Ken Sealing, I don't know what he did, but he's got inducted anyway in the museum that bears his name. And I know what you're thinking. What's this Hall of Fame all about? How can I nominate somebody for it? You'll find out next as we continue the conversation on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. A couple of the newest members of Waterloo Region's Hall of Fame. Ann Benedetti inducted in lacrosse. Ken Sealing inducted because he's Ken Sealing. 4 decades plus of community service. And how interesting is that to be at a ceremony, being inducted into a Hall of Fame in the building that bears your name, in the case of Ken Sealing, because that's where the ceremony took place. Larry Lynch now joins me in studio. Larry is not only an old friend, but also the chair of the Sports Research Committee when it comes to selections for our Hall of Fame here in the region. Always good to see you, Larry. Good morning.
Thanks, Mike. Pleasure to be here as always.
I wanted to take an opportunity here because when folks get to hear from Hall of Fame inductees, I'm sure, obviously, we've got some great stories to share, but it might make them think, well, wait a minute, we have a Hall of Fame? Let's start with even right there, the reasons behind the Hall of Fame. Why did this all get started? Why do we celebrate this,
actually,
folks?
Mike, started back in the mid-'60s with an idea to do a sports Hall of Fame. And so that's how they started off. And incredibly, the very first induction ceremony, among the guests at that ceremony were Jackie Robinson and Who else was there? Jackie Robinson and Ted Williams. How could I forget a name like that? Like, those are two of the greatest players ever to play baseball.
No kidding.
They were here for the first one. But out of that grew the real Hall of Fame, which opened up in 72. So initially it was all sports recognized, but then we realized a community like this had so much more to offer than sports. So they started honoring the people that were the Ken Sealing type guys in the community. You know, the real legends of the Waterloo County and Waterloo region. So that's how it started. It's gone on from day one. They have 570 inductees now. But when you think of that, Mike, in all honesty, population of our region has grown, and we have like 600,000 to 700,000 people now. So that means, do the quick arithmetic, there's like 1 in every 1,100 people get recognized for the Hall of Fame. And it's going to be more. It should be more. But we need some help to make that happen.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm sure folks listening and they hear this background in sports or in community involvement might think, I know somebody like that. I know somebody that's accomplished this in their given sport or has done this much in the community. How can people go about submitting a nomination, Larry?
There is actually, we're tied in with the region of Waterloo. So the committees that we're talking about are the Research Committee and the Heritage Committee, and they're all volunteers. But we're tied in with the Regional Waterloo Museum. So if you go online to the Waterloo Museum or Region of Water website, museums/Hall of Fame, there is a whole process there that you can follow. It has a nomination form. It's very strict, too. I can tell you that, Mike. The Hall of Fame process has a deadline every year of June 30th is the deadline for nominations for the following spring induction. Now, we've been kind of sliding a little bit in the last couple of years because maybe we didn't have enough on our plate for nominations. So what we've done is we've gone back and retooled a bit, but we've reworked the nomination form to make it a little easier. But we'll get people that will put in a name and a newspaper clipping, and that's their nomination. It doesn't work like that. So the deadline is June 30th. The criteria is you fill out the form. You have to do some research for us so we know who we're talking, how we get a hold of them, or somebody that can speak for them. Nominations that are submitted are held for 3 years. So even if you don't get elected in the first year of nomination, you got 2 more chances. The important thing as well, and especially on the sports side, we look at the accomplishments of the athletes, but we have to have some way to separate the chaff from the wheat in farming talk. And so we look at the level. You have to play at the highest level of your sport. So if your highest you've played is junior A hockey, for example, that's really good. But the NHL right now is the benchmark. Now, we've had some discussion on that, Mike, that, with Europe really developing an international players coming over to play junior and staying on and stuff, maybe we have to look at Olympics, things like that. But for women, certainly, Olympics are much higher in their various sports that they participate in. So, and then the other thing for all honorees is legacy in the community. Okay, so you have to have a body of work, number one. Then you have to leave something. Now, that being said, you get people like Scott Stevens, who grew up here, tremendous career, moved out of town to play NHL hockey, comes back to visit, but he left a huge legacy here. Lennox Lewis, prime example, came here, trained here, learned his sport here, started his very first fight here. I know I attended it, maybe you did at the Odd, but he's moved out, but he comes back. And I mean, certainly you have to have exceptions for those type of people.
Absolutely. So it's regionofwaterloo.ca/museums. You'll find the nomination form for the Waterloo Region Sports Hall of Fame. Nominations due by the end of June, and then that's for next spring's induction. And once those nominations come in, Larry, I know there's a lot of work that goes into the processing of them, the vetting, the decision-making, ultimately.
Absolutely. But, as you know, a longtime member of our selection committee, Mike is, there's a lot of work because the applications, the people doing the application haven't filled out. So it's really important when they ask you a question like why this, why that, why something else, you got to put something down.
Absolutely. The more that comes into that nomination form, the better it is.
I mean, you can include letters, 2 letters, I believe, of support from people that know the candidate. You can put in clippings and stuff. But really, the nomination form is really important. And it will be after this year, because I think we've made the decision now, if you don't fill out that nomination form, we don't consider it, which is really sad because there may be some really good, in which case we would go back and chase it.
Absolutely. And just more work for the volunteers.
Yeah.
All right. Before I let you go, Larry.
Let me just say a thing
Sure.
on the volunteers, though. We are looking for volunteers. I want to put that out to the waves. We are trying really hard to add people to our selection group. And, we try to follow the, diversity, inclusion, but we're struggling with that. So if you reach out to the Waterloo Museum, you can email me, larrylynch09@gmail.com. If you have interest in joining as a volunteer on the selection group, we'll look at everybody that puts their name forward. Doesn't mean you'll get on, but we'll look at everybody.
I think it's a great point, and the more that's on that selection committee, the broader the reach we can have to find the right people to go into this Hall of Fame. Keep up the great work. It's always good to see you.
Thanks.
Larry Lynch on the research committee for the sports selection for our Waterloo Region Sports Hall of Fame. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Mondays are made for tradition. This week in music history, which is coming up right after this update from the 570 News Center. Drewe's Views is here. David Drewe will be in studio. There's a big throne speech coming, and the king arrives this afternoon. We'll talk about that and more, I'm sure. And then noon to 1, your Talkback Hour on Mondays is Rant or Rave. All of that coming up. Stay with us on this Monday edition of the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
In this proud land we grew up strong. We were wanted all along. I was taught to fight, taught to win. I never thought I could fail.
Can I tell you how much I love me some Peter Gabriel? I should listen to more Peter Gabriel. This is his collab, as the kids would say today. Back when they collaborated, we would have called it a duet, I think. Peter Gabriel, Kate Bush, and Don't Give Up, our introduction to This Week in Music History this week. And there will be a trivia question about this very song later, my friend. So stick around for that. Brian Allison is our musicologist who joins us every Monday at 11 a.m. for This Week in Music History. I encourage you to follow the Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History. We can't get to everything on the show, but we get to as much as we can. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Mike.
Let's start, please, with another of my favorite bands, Mark Knopfler and company, Dire Straits, who make some history this week in music history.
Boy, did they ever. We're going to go back to 1985 when Mike and Brian were just young fellers.
But we were listening to Dire Straits, too.
We certainly were, yeah. So it was on May 25th, 1985, that Dire Straits released their fifth studio album, Brothers in Arms, which began a 14-week chart top in the UK, and even more so in the United States. It reached number 1 on the Billboard 200, broke a bunch of records in different countries, and just was a monster album. Big, huge record with some memorable songs. Of course, Money for Nothing probably being the one that folks remember the best. And, that hook at the beginning with Sting singing, I Want My MTV, was pretty much unescapable in 1985 and beyond. And it also set a new standard in its format, because Brothers in Arms was the first record fully digitally marketed to CD buyers, and it would soon become the first CD to sell 1 million copies and the first CD to outsell its vinyl counterpart. So there's a little bit of trivia for Brothers in Arms as well.
I love that. I was part of that. I bought it on CD. I did not buy the vinyl of that one.
I bought it on CD originally, and then more recently they released an anniversary edition of it on half-speed vinyl, which I have acquired, and it sounds phenomenal.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Last week on the show, on our All Request Friday, we played people's favorite TV show theme songs. One of them that we got to play was, of course, The Partridge Family, Come On, Get Happy, but it was anything but on this day in 1974.
Yeah, we go back to 1974, and David Cassidy was huge. I think people sometimes forget how big of a star David Cassidy was in the early 70s. At one point, he was the highest paid entertainer in the world, and his fan club membership was larger than both of Elvis and the Beatles. So this was a big, big artist in 1974. But that comes with a price. So David was touring the UK, promoting not only his own solo career, but the Partridge Family, which was sort of in its final days at that point. And he was doing a concert at White City in England. Over 1,000 fans had to be treated by first aid workers due to the frenzied excitement and the crowd pushing near the front of the stage. And sadly, one fan, 14-year-old Bernadette Wellen, she passed away due to heart failure in a hospital a few days later, having been crushed by this crowd. So that was a significant event, not only in music history, but certainly for David Cassidy. And he would make reference to it many times in the years to come during his struggles with alcohol, for sure, because he referenced a lot of guilt about losing that fan at that terrible event that occurred in 1974.
I got to say, Brian, I mean, I've never really understood the appeal of being right up there at the front with the rest of the crowd pushing in on you.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, we can go right back to Beatlemania for that.
Sure.
And the hype that certain artists will create, and people just, are overcome with excitement. And, I don't think anybody can become more fanatic than a teenage fan swooning over her musical star. So in 1974, that was David Cassidy.
Absolutely. A few years later on This Week in Music History, we'll go to 77. And I think the Sex Pistols were controversial enough just by name, but they courted even more controversy on This Week in Music History.
It was complete outrage, and especially in England, more so than probably for the United States or for Canada here. Although, they did make a mark worldwide, but particularly in England, the Sex Pistols definitely struck a nerve. So they released, May 27, 1977, they released their controversial single, God Save the Queen. And they were protesting what they considered, quote unquote, self-congratulatory nonsense with respect to Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee in 1977. They were looking at their own country of England and saying, we're in poverty, class wars are rampant everywhere, and we're going to celebrate this glorified welfare, not on our watch. So that was what God Save the Queen was all about. And the song lyrics saying the Queen ain't no human being and that England has no future, it resonated with kids and teens, but it certainly didn't resonate with some of the older order in Britain. And for the first time, the song actually did go to the top of the charts, but for the first time in music history in the UK, the number one song appeared as a black line because they refused to print the name God Save the Queen, and they refused to print the name the Sex Pistols on the chart.
Fascinating stuff, as always, on This Week in Music History with our resident musicologist, Brian Allison. We'll get to that little bit of trivia connected to Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush's Don't Give Up, and reports of the death of this band member were perhaps greatly exaggerated. You'll learn more as we continue this week in music history with Brian Allison on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies, and I'm not proud of my address. In a torn up town, no postcode envy, but every song's like gold teeth, grey goose dripping in the bathroom, bloodstains, ball gowns, trash in the hotel room. We don't care.
That's a song called Royals by Lord. As we continue to weave a theme for you on the show today, you can add Maureen and Nathan to those who have successfully figured out. I mean, I didn't say it was going to be tough. I just thought we'd put a theme together for you on the show today. We'll reveal the answer between noon and 1 during our Talkback Hour. Right now, we continue This Week in Music History with musicologist Brian Allison, who joins us every Monday morning at 11 a.m. to look back at what happened on This Week in Music History. And for a moment anyway, Brian, for a brief moment, Depeche Mode fans must have been beside themselves because a member of the band had died, I guess?
Not a guess. True fact. Yeah, he actually was dead briefly. 1996 was a very dark time. At probably the peak of Depeche Mode's popularity, certainly in North America. They had been sort of a more alternative band in England and had started to develop a fan base. But by 1996, they were massive in the United States, selling out concerts from coast to coast, and very popular band. And Dave Gahan, lead singer, was in a very dark place of heroin addiction. And it was on May 28, 1996 that came to a head when he actually died in his hotel room at the Sunset Marquis Hotel in Los Angeles and was flatlined for a full 2 minutes. Had to be revived with an injection of adrenaline to the heart, and was revived successfully, and soon thereafter turned a page to sobriety in his life, which I believe he's followed ever since. I think he lives quite a life of health now and drug-free, which is great because they're a great live band, a great performing band, and it would have been awfully sad to have lost Dave back then in 1996.
Nothing like 2 minutes on the other side to turn things around for you, eh?
Well, and he does talk a lot about the classic near-death experience, hovering over his body, seeing the attendants work on him, and, thinking it's not my time yet, and going back. So, I think it really was. I mean, he'll say in interviews, I've heard him speak about it and say, I'm truly blessed. Somebody's watching over me because I shouldn't be here telling this story today.
Absolutely. This is not an uncommon story, I don't think. Bands that are together for a while don't always get along the very best. And on This Week in 2009, a couple of former Black Sabbath bandmates decided that they were going to go to court.
Yeah, Ozzy wasn't happy in 2009 because he had wanted to use the name Black Sabbath. And I think rightfully so. Tony Iommi, the lead guitar player, and several members of the band were still using the name Black Sabbath. Ozzy also wanted to use it for marketing and whatnot, and I think that would have only been fair, but the band claimed that he had legally relinquished rights to the band's name in the 1980s. Ozzy claims he has no memory of that, but he has no memory of a lot of things that happened in the 1980s, so they went to court over it and decided to battle it out in terms of who could use the name Black Sabbath. And, it kind of begs the question, like when a band breaks up, who gets to own the name? Who can use that name to market themselves or, tour, basically? Are you still Black Sabbath if it's just Ozzy? Or can you say, former Black Sabbath singer Ozzy when you're promoting yourself? I'm not sure where that lands.
It's a great question, and I think you and I discussed this many, many weeks ago on this segment, Brian. Like, at what point does a band not even become the band anymore, right? How many band members have to change within April Wine, for example, before it's no longer really April Wine, but a tribute band?
Well, and I think the example I used was the Doobie Brothers, who had played in Kitchener around the time we had talked about that. And I don't think that there's a Doobie Brother left in the Doobie Brothers. Like, there's no original band members.
Right.
It's all pretty much new players. So is it still the Doobie Brothers? Of course, there's nobody objecting to them touring under that name at this point. But the guys in Black Sabbath certainly had to fight this one out in court to decide who's going to get to be Black Sabbath.
All right, we started the segment this week, Brian, with Don't Give Up, the duet Peter Gabriel sang with Kate Bush. There's a reason for that and a trivia question that goes with it. But why is the song of note on This Week in Music History?
Well, this is the week 1986 that it hit number one on the album chart. The album was called So, and, of course, featured Don't Give Up, which was the duet with Kate Bush. Also, the monstrous hit Sledgehammer, which was another song in 1986 that you just couldn't escape. The video, of course, was so cutting edge back then that it got high rotation play on MTV and Much Music here in Canada. I think most of us probably know that video by heart, having seen it so many times. But Gabriel had written Don't Give Up from a reference point of sort of an American roots music. And he originally planned to record that as a duet with another female artist. It was not Kate Bush that was originally selected to record that with him. It was another artist. Any idea who that might have been?
I haven't the foggiest, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself for this, Brian, but I have no idea who it could have been before it became Kate Bush.
It might surprise you to know that it was actually offered to Dolly Parton.
Come on!
Gabriel wanted to record it with Dolly, and Dolly was hesitant about it. At first sort of said, yeah, that's a nice song. I think I could do that. And then I think later her publicist decided it wasn't for them and that they turned it down. And it was at that point that Peter Gabriel went to his fellow country person, Kate Bush, and said, how'd you like to do this as a duet with me? And she agreed. And the rest is, as they say, history. It became a massive hit, a great duet. I mean, I can't even imagine anybody else singing that song with Peter Gabriel other than Kate Bush. But it's interesting to think of Dolly in that part, don't you think?
I don't think of Dolly doing duets with many others besides Kenny Rogers.
Well, maybe that's what Peter should have done, is offered the song to Kenny Rogers to sing with Dolly. That would have been interesting.
There you go. But no, I'm with you on, I mean, it probably doesn't hurt that the song became such a hit. It's so well ingrained in us that naturally we couldn't think of anybody besides Kate Bush to be Gabriel's partner on it.
That's usually the way it goes, though. When the song becomes a hit and it's ingrained in us, you know, it's kind of difficult to say, well, yeah, but so-and-so could have done it so much better than that person, because it's just the way it is.
Absolutely. Always fun with these musical trips down a memory lane, Brian. Thanks for being here again this week.
As always, Mike, I'll talk to you next Monday.
Look forward to it. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Brian Allison is our musicologist who joins us every Monday morning, 11 o'clock, for a look back at This Week in Music History. Don't forget to follow the Facebook page of the same name, This Week in Music History, and you'll hear these tidbits or read these tidbits and more on the This Week in Music History Facebook page. Brian Allison with us every Monday morning at 11 here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, it's getting pretty close to that time, isn't it? I've had this feeling of dread hanging over me all morning. I arrived in the studio today to find waiting for me a baseball cap. It is a cap that has the logo and name of the team that shall not be named. You can see the picture on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Me and my big mouth promised that if our Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot got to $100,000 or $50,000 take home, I would wear that hat. And you did it. You got the jackpot because, of course, it's fun to think of winning more than $50,000, right? But that's also more than $50,000 for cystic fibrosis research, which is so incredibly important to me. So, yeah, I shot off my mouth and you called me on my crap, and here I am. So I said, noon to 1 today, I'm going to wear the hat of the team that shall not be named. It's sitting over to my left here in the studio. I pushed it away with a pair of scissors this morning because I can't even bring myself to touch it. but in 30 minutes' time, it will go on my head. I will wear it for the full hour of the show. Lots of people commenting on the Facebook page I should wear it backwards. Tempting, but I will not. I will. Oh my gosh. It's honestly, I'm feeling a little anxious about it, but I'm going to do it because I promised that I would. And thank you for getting the jackpot to the point that it's at. Oh my gosh, Rogers TV, did you just do that? Did you just, yeah, you did. You put the camera on the hat so you can see the butter tarts that are here too. My buddy Kenny brought me some butter tarts. He says, this will make it easier to put on the hat. No, it won't, Kenny. No, it won't. But hey, if you want to get in on the 50-50, by the way, the jackpot, almost $106,000 right now, which is a $53,000 take home, just under that. CF5050.ca. 30 minutes left, and then my day takes a significant turn sideways. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now, that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball, like he'd never even had a secret.
More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. Oh, Scott Wicken, you do turn a phrase.
He turns some great phrases.
He sure does. That is our introduction to Drewe's Views. David Drewe, the owner of Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies, joins us every Monday morning at this time. And as we were listening to Matt Hutchison read us that update at 11:30, and Matt said, no, the NDP will not be granted official party status because they don't have enough seats. David said, well, of course not. Because, David, how low can the NDP go?
Well, it's funny because I was driving in listening, and I don't recall hearing that on the last news update. So this is very recent to me, at least, that they're not getting party status. But the very first bullet point I sent to you last night was, remember when the joke was that NDP stood for not destined for power? Now it's not destined for party status. I saw this coming. Now, it's sort of neat because if you listen to Don Davies make the argument, he explains this is what we would get if we had party status. And some of it seems actually quite reasonable. There's a voting dashboard because of this online voting they have going now. And if they had official party status, he would be able to see which of his MPs had or had not voted yet, so he could give them the kick in the butt and remind them to get out there. I don't see a reason why they shouldn't have that. You know what I mean? A basic tool like that, it costs nothing. It costs the other parties nothing. Why not? Oh, but you want questions at committee? No, you lost. You lost party status, and there is no reason you should be expecting the Bloc, the Liberals, or the Conservatives to give up the speaking time they are entitled to as a result of the election results because the NDP are the good guys and didn't quite get there this time. This is going to get me in trouble, but you don't get to golf from the ladies' tee after the putt. You know what I mean? You don't get to start retroactively from a head start in politics. They lost. And yes, some of the stuff that's just useful for, like, you know, Elizabeth May, one person. She doesn't need access to this dashboard because she knows whether she's voted or not. But when you've got 7 MPs, would it be helpful? Sure. Why not? Like, why not? But questions in question period, again, you are taking that away from the people who are entitled to that time according to the election results. And there is no good, you know, if they were 1 seat away, I'd still be against it, but I could see a whole lot more reasons why people would disagree with me. But when you're barely halfway to what you need, no.
Rules are rules. They're meant to be followed.
Exactly. And if it really is that big a deal, maybe NDP voters will consider that next time and not vote for the Liberals or the Conservatives, or maybe they will because they're okay with it.
Let me ask you, David Drewe, this existential question. Does size matter when it comes to a shadow cabinet, of course?
No. But seriously, I looked at that incredibly voluminous shadow cabinet list from the Conservatives, and I was just giggling at first. And then it occurs to me, though, but you know what? None of these people get any more taxpayer resources. They don't get a bump in pay like a parliamentary secretary does or a minister of state does. They get no extra staff. So again, why not? Why not let the babies have their bottles? You know, like I was saying with the NDP earlier, why not just like, so what's cheesing you off? Okay, you're the critic for that.
Oh, I could be the critic for a lot of things, David.
Well, no, but that's just it. You might find out that, you know, Drewe became before F. Farwell, and I'm already the critic of the stuff that you want to be critic about, and you can't be associate critic because we just need a French one for that. Jack Layton had the most notorious of this because he had all the experience on the English side of the bench. And on the French side of the bench, after that Orange Wave, they were all newbies. So you had all these critics in English and all these associate critics in French who would just basically repeat the English question in French so they could get that clip. It doesn't look like Poilievre's exercising that strategy. This looks more like just trying to give everybody something to go home and brag about so they can look good for their constituents so that they'll be happy with him and he'll have the comrade towards his leadership review.
This is something, I admittedly tangential, but because you brought up the leadership review, I know the Conservatives have had a real problem eating their own since Stephen Harper, and heaven forbid they go through another election and then punt another leader. But I've been listening to Pierre Poilievre this weekend, and I'm recognizing that he's not going to be in the House tomorrow when the king delivers the throne speech, because he can't be, because he doesn't have a seat. And I'm just listening to him and thinking, I'm sorry, but you've got a really unlikable dude leading your party right now. He was unlikable during the election. He's still unlikable today.
He's unlikable to certain demographics.
I guess I'm that demographic then.
Oh, no, that's very fair. But, you know, as much as we can say he's unlikable, and there's ample evidence to demonstrate that, he got the Conservatives over 40% of the vote, something that hasn't been accomplished since the 80s. And, you know, what are we at? 2024, Mulrooney was 83, so that's 41 years. What was 41 years before 1983, 1942?
Oh, my gosh.
No, but that's just it. We are like, I go through these little exercises in my head because I'm like, oh, you know, just back to Mulrooney. And you're like, oh, yeah. But you know, you've got some younger listeners who are feeling like we are two very, very gray bearded old men when we talk about Mulrooney. But that's how far this goes. So, yeah, to me, it's not, is he likable enough? Is he likable in a way that also pushes others away? Can you be likable without being so polarizing? Can you keep 40 of that 42%, and by losing that 2%, drive 7% of the Liberals back to the NDP? He's got some tweaking to do. He's got some major tweaking to do to his tone and image. But man, this is a baby bathwater thing. And if any, and keep in mind, remember, I thought Aaron O'Toole deserved a second chance. I thought Andrew Scheer deserved a second chance. In hindsight, I was really wrong about that one. But I do believe in second chances for leaders. And as much as, you know, you were talking about the Conservatives doing the one and done, the Liberals, until Justin Trudeau won an election, they were one and done too. It just tends to be the short attention span of today's society.
That's fair. And that's why this tangent brought to you by the random musings of my mind. And I like you that you bring me back in line on these things, David.
Well, no, but you do have a point, but I just wanted to refine it. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just, you have to acknowledge that he climbed the ladder higher in terms of this than anybody else. And then the other weird thing too is, like, they lost the vote count. For the first, like, they lost the vote count and got 42%. the last couple elections, the Conservatives were ahead in the vote count. Just the mathematics of the seats mucked them up. This time, boom, we actually lost. How do you keep what you've achieved without being so polarizing?
Okay. Before we take the break, let's talk about the mandate letters. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is pretty plain and simple, according to Mark Carney, given the letters that he issued to his caucus.
This is
cabinet.
Yeah, this is going to be like the ice bucket challenge for the civil service. They're really not used to being given such freedom of creativity. Well, no, he's literally saying, hey, figure out how you can contribute to these missions. That's not generally the way it works. Generally, it's, hey, we have this program, help us implement it. And probably during COVID, there was a little bit more of this type of thing, but it was so panicked. This is actually planned out. It's really, really neat. But it's a foreign mandate letter. So, if you're the Minister of Sport, I'm not sure how you fit into these priorities other than finding money to cut from your budget. Some it's really, really obvious. But for others, it's just like, well, what do I do with this? I don't know. The old format would have. But then we also don't have a budget coming until the fall. And it's these two things together that are pretty darn scary to me, because you have everywhere from the civil servants in Ottawa to civic society. And what I mean by that are researchers in universities who are wondering if their envelopes are going to be increased because, AI. We're all talking about AI. Well, what does that mean in terms of funding? Should we be gearing up for a major AI push? Because that's where the dollars are, and that's how universities think. But, cystic fibrosis, they want, at the national level, they want to know what the direction of the budget is, of the government is. And the two ways you get this are through the budget and mandate letters. And so the whole lot is hanging on the King of England tomorrow, Mike.
I'm so excited by this, I can't even tell you. And I'm not a royal watcher.
No, but this is really neat because he is the King of Canada.
Yes, he is.
And it is very theoretically possible that he could get up and say yes, and the Prime Minister of England is a jerk. Because those are the words that Prime Minister Mark Carney wrote for the King of Canada. And he is here as the King of Canada, not the King of England. And so, obviously, I don't want an international incident. But I think it would be very instructive to Canadians if some phrasing like that made it very clear that this is our king and not the King of England who drops by once in a while. If I could, do I have 20 seconds?
Sure.
This trip is short. This trip is the shortest royal visit I can remember in my lifetime. I think they're planting a tree, doing the throne speech, and then the other one that they're really low-hanging not talking about is Camilla being sworn in to the Privy Council so that she can formally advise the King of Canada on how to govern us.
I wonder why they're keeping that low on the radar.
I wonder why they're not leading with that.
I wonder. David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30 for Drew's Views. Is this a new Liberal government, or are we recycling the past decade? That and more as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. David Drewe owns and operates Negotiating Change, Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. Joins us every Monday morning, 11:30 for Drew's Views. He's trying to really get our backs up by invoking the name Kathleen Wynne alongside Justin Trudeau. I mean, is this really a new Liberal Party and or direction, David, or is it an extension of the previous decade? And what has Kathleen Wynne got to do with it?
Well, just think back to how she took over from Dalton McGuinty, won a term, and it was all fresh and new when she first won that term. But by the end of that first term, all of the barnacles of the McGuinty government had stuck to her, and we got Mr. Doug Ford. This is the question. Right now, it seems like Mark Carney, none of the barnacles of the Trudeau era are sticking to him yet. But how long is that going to last? And when you have Stephen Guilbeault coming out and saying, well, we don't need any more pipelines. When you have Gregor Robertson, the Minister of Housing, coming out and saying the price of housing doesn't need to come down, it doesn't sound that fresh and new. And it's going to be forgiven because we are so brand new at this. But if discipline does not come down and people don't start understanding that they're here because of him and by a miracle, this will not be tolerated for very long. Like, by the fall, it's very possible if these little errors keep continuing, he's going to come across like the gang that couldn't shoot straight. And when that budget comes in the fall, choices are going to be made, and there's going to be some people who will, for the first time, be disappointed because they're going to find out that they're not on track where they thought they were. And then again, boom, all the people who were cheesed at Trudeau will be cheesed at Mark Carney very, very quickly because they are just going to be in the same place they were for the last decade. And it might just be that he has every intention of getting there in 2 years once this dumb Trump stuff is out of the way. By the way, do you know what Trump's Golden Dome is?
Specifically, no.
Okay, it's what we see when the wind blows his comb over the wrong way.
Come on now. David, be nice. Be nice to Donald Trump. Okay, when you said, is it really new? You made me think of something, and I thought I heard something that was new-ish. So you said in the last segment, can you have 20 seconds? Can I have 21?
Sure.
Okay. Listen to this. It sounded new to me.
Our government has been elected to do nothing less than define a new economic and security relationship with the United States and build the strongest economy that works for everyone. Canadians also want their life to become more affordable. They want their communities safer. We will deliver these mandates with urgency and determination. We are going to get going from minute one.
We're going to get going from minute one. Affordability and safer cities. I don't think I heard that from the previous Liberal leader.
Oh, I can't remember his name now off brain fart, but the Minister of Natural Resources spoke in Calgary last week. If you listen to his speech, he could have been a member of Stephen Harper's cabinet. He said all the things that the Conservatives were saying for the past 2 decades. It was really quite amazing. But then again, we have Stephen Guilbeault on the other side.
Sure. And
it's really neat because apparently he demands punctuality.
Mark Carney does?
Yes. So I heard like the journalists joking about they already are predicting which ministers are going to get in the most trouble over that based on how late they were for Trudeau's cabinet meetings. Tardiness was tolerated by the Prime Minister for cabinet meetings. And then you look at it like, that's why his press conferences would be 90 minutes late starting, because tardiness was just tolerated. And Mark Carney's like, no, you're going to show up for work. You're going to be in Ottawa if you're a cabinet minister. You're going to be running your department from Ottawa if you are a cabinet minister. You are going to wear professional clothes. You are going to show up on time. And this is like a slap with a fish at these people. It's just so shocking. And Steve McKinnon actually said something on the weekend where they were being asked about how things were going, and he said, we're focused on getting, I'm going to paraphrase here, we're focused on getting things done. We're working as a great team. It's quite refreshing. Wait a minute. Wait, refreshing from what? Okay. And it's got to be hard because you can't, in this moment, post-election, before anything is sat down yet, already start blaming Conservatives. But my God, if I was Justin Trudeau hearing that, I'd be like, dude, you could have said something back when.
Party's over.
Yeah.
Party's over. Okay, less than 60 seconds, but tying into what you just talked about, the Minister of Natural Resources, sounding like somebody who could have fit nicely into Stephen Harper's cabinet for 2 decades. Is Mark Carney the kind of Liberal that you, David Drewe, can find yourself liking?
So far, very much. So far, very much. But so far, he's delivered nothing. But what I'm really noticing is Canada's new government. He's using that phrase. And that was what Stephen Harper used when he was first elected. And I'm just finding it kind of funny where it was kind of controversial when Stephen Harper did it. And there was this whole lot of people didn't like the branding of it and blah, blah, blah. And now Mark Carney's doing it. And everybody's like, yeah, well, you got to dissociate from the last guy. It's different when a Liberal replaces a Liberal than when a Conservative replaces a Liberal. Because apparently a Liberal replacing a Liberal is new. But a Conservative replacing a Liberal, well, calling that new, there's something shady. That's our standards here. God bless Canada.
God bless Canada, and God save the king.
God save the king. Oh, yeah, I caught that segment too. History and music.
History and music. Oh, I get what you did there. David Drewe is the owner of Negotiating Change, Government Relations Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. Joins us every Monday morning, 11:30 for Drew's Views.
See you later, you fashion plate, you.
Enjoy the throne speech tomorrow, my friend. This is the Mike Farwell Show, the Fashion Plate Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, the camera is in place to capture for social media what is about to happen here on the program. And of course, the Rogers TV cameras will capture it as well. Your open line hour of Talkback, Rant or Rave, is coming up. And as it begins, I will don the cap of the team that shall not be named because I said I would. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
All right. Here goes nothing. I've moved it to the side with a pair of scissors. I couldn't even touch it, but I have to do this. I'm going to reach to my left. I can't even believe my fingers are touching this thing. I have now picked up the hat of the team that shall not be named, and I'm going to put it right on top of my bald head. So at least you won't have to stare at that for the next 60 minutes. But it burns! It burns! Why is it hot? Oh my gosh! Look what you made me do! But I'm doing it because I said I would. If the Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot reached $100,000 overall, $50,000 take home, I would wear the hat of the team that shall not be named. We reached the plateau. I'm wearing the hat. I do hope you're happy with this because it hurts. It hurts so much. I can't. Here we are. The jackpot currently, by the way, is, let me hit refresh. We're just $20 away from $106,000. $53,000 take home. If you want to get in on the jackpot, cf5050.ca. Get your tickets before noon on Friday, the 30th. We're going to make the draw for the winner at 12:15 right here on this show. A lot of people said I should wear this hat backwards. I shouldn't wear it and just pretend. No, I am a man of my word. I did say if we get to this point, I would put the hat on, and this sucks. I'm sorry for my bluntness. I'm sorry for my language, but this is terrible. I cannot stand the feeling of this hat being on my head, truly in my soul. And what am I going to do? You came through and got that jackpot to where it is, and it's still going to climb before Friday. This is all for cystic fibrosis research, which means more to me than I can possibly explain. And so I'm wearing the ding-dang hat. I hope you're happy. Rant or Rave, phone lines open. We'll start with Kyle. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. Good thing I don't have Rogers TV currently because,
I am ugly, man. I am ugly.
I feel like I got tears in my eyes. We and I both got to go confession after this,
Oh, bless me, Father, for I have sinned.
I didn't know if I was in the penalty box or I got a gross misconduct or anything for Friday, so I'm just going to go. Maybe you got the curse of Harold Ballard there. But I have a huge rave. I watched the Indy 500. I'm a huge gearhead. I love racing cars. I grew up racing cars. Watched the Indy 500. Huge rave to Alex Paulo. First Spaniard in the history of the Indy 500 to win. It was a great race. It's on my bucket list to go one year is to go see the Indy 500. That'd be cool. But I just wanted to give a huge rave. It was awesome. I know there's not probably a lot of people that are big motorsport fans, but I loved it. I sat and watched it, and it was a great race. And congratulations to Alex Paulo, first Spaniard to win the Indy 500. Thanks a lot, Mike, my friend.
All right, Kyle. Thanks for the call. Starting us off on Rant or Rave. George, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing there?
Not well at all. Thanks for asking, though.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I have a positive note to give you.
Okay.
As you wear that hat for the next hour,
yeah,
just remember, Mike, I almost feel like crying, how much you love your two sisters. And Luella,
buddy. Thank you for that. You know what? That's a really good way to look at it, George. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. You know what? George is right. My sisters, Luann and Sherry, who succumbed to cystic fibrosis, which is why we do Farwell for Hire today, which is why we're still raising money for research towards a cure. And oh my gosh, are we getting close? We are getting close. I love them. I would have done anything for them when they were with me. I'll do anything for them now. And for people who are living with cystic fibrosis today. So I really don't like the feeling. I'm not joking about that. I do not like this hat on my head. I am such a true Blue Leafs fan and a Rangers fan. And I so dislike this team. I really do. But great perspective, George. Thank you for that, my friend. Thank you. Ranger Joe, good afternoon.
How are you, Mike? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mikey, you know, at least one thing you can do after you take that hat off, and do it for all us other people that do not like the team that shall not be named.
You want me to burn the hat?
Yeah, I hope you have a fire pit at home and throw it in there and just get rid of it like it never happened, Mike, and then just erase it from your memory that you ever wore it on your head, okay?
Sounds good, Joe. I appreciate that, buddy.
Now, Mikey, I have one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
Florida Panthers. Who's going to beat them? I don't think there's anybody. I mean, I've been watching the last few games, and that forechecking attack of theirs is just unbelievable. What do you think, Mikey?
It's a great question, Ranger Joe. I don't know who might beat the Florida Panthers, but I'm glad you brought that up because Russell sent me an email early this morning knowing what I had to do today, and he said maybe it'll make you feel better knowing that the Leafs were the only team that really gave Florida a bit of a push so far because they are running roughshod over those Carolina Hurricanes. That is for sure. And just so you know, this hat will not be burned. It might surprise you or not surprise you at all. I don't have this sort of thing just hanging around my house, thank you very much, because I really dislike this team. So this is one of my coworkers' father's hats, and I must return it in good shape, other than the fact it had to go on my fat head for an hour. So I will not do anything to the hat except remove it, and this hour cannot go by fast enough. Keep me company here on Rant or Rave on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Oh, that sounds to me like the Kings of Leon. And some sex on fire here on the Mike Farwell Show today. There's something else I'd like to set on fire. The hat that is currently atop my head. But a bet is a bet. A promise is a promise. I told you if the Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot surpassed $100,000 or $50,000 for the take-home prize, I would wear the hat of the team that shall not be named. And here I am doing just that. By the way, Sex on Fire from the Kings of Leon continues our theme Monday here on the show. The songs that we have played, Stand By Me, It's Too Late, Louie Louie, Hound Dog, The Thrill Is Gone, Royals, and Waiting Man by King Crimson. Now, Sex on Fire from Kings of Leon. We'll let you know in the next 30 minutes or so what the theme was if you haven't figured it out already. Rant or Rave continues with Mark. Good afternoon, Mark.
Mike, you're a good man. You're a man of your word.
Oh, I feel awful. Awful, Mark. I
know, you'll get over it.
No, will I?
Yeah, you will, Mike.
Okay.
Because it's always towards a good cause, right? That's what you got to think about.
It is a good cause, but this is going to live on forever. It's on the internet now.
Okay. Listen, I bought my 50-50 tickets today.
Attaboy.
So, I heard the jackpot is growing nicely.
Jackpot right now is $106,225.
Wow. And I have one more question, Mike. What are you going to do with that hat after the show today?
I'm going to return it to its owner. That's it.
Oh, you are you?
I will. I won't. I can't do it. It's somebody else's hat. But
I got a suggestion for you, Mike.
Okay.
Before you return it to him, put it on the floor and kick it.
All right, I'll think about it, Mark. Thank you.
And then put it back in the box nicely and give it back to him.
Not a bad idea.
Okay, Mike.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. That 50-50 jackpot, by the way, your take-home prize, more than $53,000 now. Jack, you're on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Well, it's not a rant. It's not a rave. It's just for information purposes.
Sure.
My deal is, I'm trying to figure out, everyone's talking about housing costs and yada, yada, and the government has these ideas on how they can fix it. Well, I've been each week doing a breakdown of what the problem is, and the CMHC fee on, say, a $800,000 purchase, 5% down, is $760, so it's $30,400. And the CMHC fee basically allows the banks to sell someone a house for less than 25% down. And I'm going to do a breakdown of how much has been paid out of the CMHC to save anybody any money or protect anybody, including the bank. And, there's so many costs in the house that is government-related bureaucracies that don't add value to anything. So anyway, that's my rant. Time to pay attention about these things and find some solutions.
All right, Jack, I appreciate that. There are a lot of costs associated with housing, including the development costs that go to municipalities. Not everywhere in this country, but certainly in Ontario, certainly here in the region of Waterloo. Rory, you're on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, how are things?
Not bad. I've been better considering this stupid hat on my head.
Well, hey, there could be worser things. You could be wearing a London Knights jersey.
Oh, wait a minute. Didn't you lose that same bet with colleagues in London?
I lost the bet, and yes, so I will be going for my public shaming pretty soon. We're just sorting out the details. So,
I feel for you, brother.
I'll send you the photo.
Okay.
Mike, just wanted to make a general comment. Growing up in Cambridge, one of my best friends, and usually it's the people that live down the street from you, the kids that live down the street from you, but he was one of my best friends growing up, and his parents immigrated from Palestine to Canada, worked really hard, raised a family with great kids, paid taxes, contributed to their community, and they were probably one of the nicest people I've ever come across, Mike. So take that as it may.
Rory, I appreciate that phone call and that perspective. It's the same perspective I shared, or opposite from, I guess, the perspective I shared earlier today. But I've gotten to know so many people in this community over the years, among them some lovely Jewish families. And I remember in the early days after October 7th, when Hamas, it was just terrible, that terror attack, and the hostages taken and all of the unspeakable things that happened. And I randomly had an encounter with one of these folks. I hadn't even thought about their heritage, their faith, anything like that. And this woman expressed to me how concerned she was just walking around the streets of Waterloo region in the days after that, because it felt so different, unsafe, unsettled, you name it. And I brought that up in connection to the rally that was held in Uptown Waterloo this past weekend. Needed a police presence to make sure that everything stayed controlled. And I get Rory's point, and I shared it from the Jewish perspective earlier, and I just wondered. I just wondered if all of this noise here in our community, where these fantastic families have been living contributing their community, doing great things for decades. Why it has to happen here, where we're making some of our neighbors feel uncomfortable by our actions. I don't know. I know that sometimes I make you uncomfortable with what I say. So I get that, and maybe being uncomfortable is a part of our growth and a part of our life, but I think we have choices. And we should recognize the impact of those choices. We'll continue here with Rant or Rave on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Rant or Rave continues. It's a busy hour on the phones. Right back to him. Bob, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike.
Hi, Bob.
I got two questions for you. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay. With King Charles coming to the country, does this God Save the King still sound kind of funny to you?
Yes, it does.
Because, we grew up with God Save the Queen, and I don't wish him any harm. It just doesn't sound right.
Well, that's what you say, though, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So it sounds funny to me. Let's answer number one. What's the other question?
I just want to say, it's nice to see you adding a touch of class to your show.
Shut up. Okay, I did that on purpose because he's talking about the hat I'm wearing, which is the ugliest hat, worst hat, and it feels like a 1-ton weight on my head. I might as well be wearing a Buick right now. Bob, I love you. I'm sorry I hung up on you. Rob, from Bob to Rob, Deutschman? Oh, jeez.
No, I'm not even getting into the hat.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Buick, so that's how I feel like I'm run over when I'm on your show. But anyway.
Whoa.
Just kidding. So tonight, I just wanted to pass on something interesting. North Dumfries Township has a big decision to make about whether they're going to be twinning the most beautiful little old ice rink in Ontario. So
this is the original one you're talking about, right?
No.
Oh, North Dumfries Community Complex. Okay.
The NDCC.
Yep.
So we're looking to twin that and preserve the old rink as a dry space for others. Because as the community grows, it's essential that you have access to facilities and services to provide programming opportunities for your communities. So council has a big decision to make. It's a weighty one in terms of financing and everything else. And we're hosting a rally. Our Community for the Center group is hosting a rally at 5:30 outside at the NDCC prior to the council meeting. So we're hoping for a lot of people to come out and show their support to finally get the NDCC twinned and to preserve and save the ACC from being sold and keep it in the community.
I love it. Rob, thanks for that update. We'll watch with interest.
See you, Mike. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. We've had the Center Group on the show before because, look, you don't twin an arena without a pretty significant cost. And we know how tight budgets are these days. But how do you meet the needs of a growing community without twinning that ice availability at the NDCC, the North Dumfries Community Complex? So that's on the agenda in North Dumfries Township tonight at its council meeting. And yes, then the Ayr Community Centre can still, of course, be used for this growing community in our region. So we will keep our eyes and ears on that. And as you heard Rob say, 5:30, rally in support of the twinning of that ice availability at North Dumfries Community Complex in the beautiful village of Ayr. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then Rant or Rave continues. Richard is next, and there's a line for you, too, here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers. I feel like we've got a deep cut going. Oh, yeah, we do. The incomparable Nat King Cole. Get your kicks on Route 66. That concludes the series of songs that we have put together for you today that are connected by the same thread. I wonder if you put them all together. Stand By Me, It's Too Late, Louie Louie, Hound Dog, The Thrill Is Gone, Royals, Waiting Man by King Crimson, and Get Your Kicks on Route 66 with Nat King Cole. Got a few emails that already have the answer. We'll let you know before the end of the show today. It wasn't supposed to be super hard, just a little bit of fun. A theme for the music we played on the show today. As Rant or Rave continues with Richard. Good afternoon, Richard.
Good afternoon, Mike. I have a rave. I needed only one bread bun for my lunch this week, and I thought I'm going to stop at Cobb's and get one. And then I thought I would treat myself to a cinnamon bun. And I went and said, well, how much is that? And she said, on the house today.
Wait a minute. Are you saying, Richard, if I go to Cobb's after the show, which is right here at the Boardwalk, she's going to give me a free cinnamon bun?
Well, this is the one on Hustler Road.
Well, ding dang it, I'm not close to that one, am I?
No, I can't speak to that. But I just wanted to say, hey, what a nice thing to do for a semi-retired guy like me that just needed one bun and decided to treat himself. So thank you to Cobb's on Hessler Road for their kindness.
Attaboy, Richard. I hope you enjoyed that cinnamon bun.
Oh, they're delicious.
They are good, aren't they? Yes, they are.
They are.
Well done, sir. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Mike.
Good to hear from you today. A nice little thing. We can give a rave in that regard. And so along those same lines, thanks to my buddy Kenny, he came rushing in here. So much happens over the course of a 4-hour show. Not only do we have these conversations that go in all kinds of different directions and we have some fun together, but I was out in the hallway to let a guest in for the show earlier today, and down the hall comes Ken, and he's got butter tarts in his hand, a package of 4 butter tarts that he brought in here today because he said, if you have these butter tarts, it's going to make it easier to wear that hat. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it. A butter tart makes everything better. It really does. And the hat that I'm wearing is one that I promised I would wear because we reached $100,000 in our Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot. And I said if we got to that mark, that milestone, I would wear a hat of the team that shall not be named. And I would wear it for the entire Talkback Hour. Well, we reached the $100,000 milestone late Friday afternoon after the show. So all weekend, I had this impending sense of doom that I have to wear this stupid, ugly hat today. And here I am. Here's the thing. Our jackpot now, it is bumping today. It is currently, I'm going to hit refresh one more time. And now $106,910 in the jackpot. 106,910. That's bigger than last year's jackpot already. The take-home prize is almost $53,500. So here's what I'm thinking. Because the jackpot is moving as fast as it is, and look, George said it earlier, and I loved what he said. He called up and said, just remember your sisters and why you're doing this. And Susan sent an email along those same lines. Write the names of your 2 sisters on a piece of paper and stick it up in the hat band. Just focus on those names. That'll make it easier. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, George. I loved my sisters dearly. I still do. I lost them to cystic fibrosis, and we want to change outcomes for families today. That's why we do this fundraising campaign. That's why I want to see the jackpot grow. I'd love to give you $53,500 or more. I'd love to see cystic fibrosis get $53,500 or more. So as the jackpot keeps moving, I mean, do you think it'll get to $120,000? A $60,000 take-home prize? Do you think it'll get there? Because I'll tell you what. If it gets there, if it gets to $120,000 in the jackpot or $60,000 take-home, I will wear this hat again on the show for the full Talkback Hour, and I will add a scarf to it. So, and not just any scarf. I mean, a stupid scarf of the stupid team that shall not be named. If the jackpot gets to $120K, and that means a take-home prize of $60,000. The hat goes back on for another full hour, and along with it, for that same hour, a scarf of the team that shall not be named. I mean, pretty soon I'm going to be decked right out in gear of the team that shall not be named. But that's only if the jackpot gets to $120,000 or a $60,000 take-home prize. Right now, that jackpot, just under 107,000, 53,500 take-home prize. We're going to award the jackpot on this show on Friday at 12:15. If you get your tickets before Friday at noon, you're in for the draw. CF5050.ca. CF5050.ca. Let's see how much money we can raise for cystic fibrosis research. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Your rant or rave talkback hour continues on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. On Mondays, it is your rant or rave edition of the Talkback Hour. 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. Back to the phones we go. Lisa, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I can't see you because I'm listening on the radio. I missed part of the end of that. But did you say if it goes to 120,000, you're putting more of that nasty stuff on?
I am. I will. I mean, the jackpot's like climbing like crazy today, so I thought, why not?
So why don't you rethink that and add an additional addendum? If it goes up to say 150,000, you get to take all that stuff off.
So then we're going to see, Lisa, if people actually like me or dislike me. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think there's a question about them liking you, and I think there's maybe a few more people that would like to see that stuff off you than on you.
Well, see, I think the people that would contribute to see it off me are people that like me. The people that are making me put this on, they don't like me at all, Lisa.
So there you go. That's why I'm saying you should add something in, because I can't do anything about the 120,000, but if you put a higher amount on, you get to take it off. That might be incentive for a lot of people that can see what you're wearing right now.
You know what, Lisa? I appreciate that. Thank you. That's a very nice suggestion, and I think, you know what, you're onto something here. So kudos to you.
I think I am.
I think you are. All right. Thanks, Lisa. You too. Yeah, bye-bye. Just so you know, if you're not able to see on Rogers TV, Cable 20, it's fine. I am a man of my word. I cannot stand the feeling of this hat on my head. But I have posted already on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, the video of me putting the hat on as this hour began. And I've got a photo taken too. I'll get that posted as well and share it so you can see that I am keeping my word. And Lisa, you know what? I think she's onto something here. So I already said if the jackpot gets to 120,000 or a $60,000 take home, I'll add a scarf. So I'll wear the hat again and a scarf of the team that shall not be named for a full talkback hour later this week, as soon as the jackpot gets that high, if it does. But you know what? Maybe there's more incentive to attach to this. We'll see. For now, I'll go back to the phones. Edward is with us. Good afternoon, Edward.
Hey, Mike, how are you today?
Oh, my good friend, Edward Ferruzel. How are you, sir?
I am awesome. And you know what, Mike? The fact that you're going to wear a scarf just incentivized me to get some more tickets.
Edward, I thought we were friends.
Hey, I love you, Mike, but, that's my team, and so I would just love to see you.
You are such a turkey. You can MC your own damn golf tournament next month.
Anyway, Mike, I'm just calling, though, to let your viewers know that, not sure if you talked about it, but it's National Accessibility Awareness Week this week.
It is, and we mentioned that there is a big conference and show coming up at Rim Park on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's right. KW Accessibility and a bunch of other agencies are putting on a one-day event for people with disabilities or people who know people with disabilities. There's going to be all sorts of agencies there, talking about the services they provide. We're going to have vendors there, so it's going to be a great day. We really hope a lot of people come out and see us.
I think it's a great day for that show, a great venue for it, obviously. And thank you for the reminder. 10 till 8 at Rim Park on Wednesday, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Fantastic. Hope folks can come out and check these things out. Edward, thank you for everything you do. And don't worry, even though you are trying to make me wear more of this junk, I'll still come to the golf tournament on June 23rd.
Sounds great, Mike. Looking forward to it.
Me too. I'll see you then, okay?
You bet. Take care.
Bye-bye. Edward Farwell is the executive director at KW Accessibility. And as he said, KW Accessibility, along with the Independent Living Waterloo Region organization, are celebrating National Accessibility Week with a trade show and conference at Rim Park Wednesday from 10 until 8. It is open to us so we can learn more, and these organizations will come together to talk about innovation and expertise showing the latest advancements in accessibility. This is, as you heard Edward say, National Accessibility Week. So Lisa got me thinking with this additional incentive. We're just kind of going off the cuff here, but I think maybe, just maybe, I mean, Edward is enjoying this so much because he's an actual fan of the team that shall not be named. I didn't know he got dropped on his head as a child, but I guess maybe he did, because I don't understand how anybody, I really don't like them. But maybe we can sweeten the pot, so to speak, even more as we're into the final days of the Farwell for Hire 50-50. And I think you'll like this. So we'll take the break. I'll tell you the idea that Lisa has inspired right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Norm sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. You never looked as good as you do right now with that cap on. Go, Mike, go. Norm, don't ever email me again, okay? Come on. I said if the Farwell for Hire 50-50 jackpot got to $100,000 or a $50,000 take-home, I would spend an hour on Talkback wearing the hat of the team that shall not be named. Lisa called earlier and inspired me to another idea, and I think she's on to something. I'll get to that in just a second, but if you were playing along with our little musical theme here on the show today, we started the show by playing Stand By Me, which was your first clue to the theme, followed up by It's Too Late, Louie Louie, Hound Dog, The Thrill Is Gone, Royals, Waiting Man, and Getting Your Kicks on Route 66. The theme that ties them all together, of course, is King. Stand By Me, Ben E. King. It's Too Late, Carole King. Louie Louie, The King's Men. Hound Dog by Elvis Presley, a.k.a. The King. The Thrill Is Gone, B.B. King. Okay, Royals, we stretched it a little bit, but a fun song from Lord. Waiting Man by a band called King Crimson. I forgot Sex on Fire in there, Kings of Leon, we played. And Getting Your Kicks on Route 66 by Nat King Cole. The King is coming, don't you know? He'll be in Ottawa this afternoon. He'll deliver our throne speech tomorrow. He's going to drop the puck at a ball, or the ball. How can you drop the puck at a ball hockey game? You can drop the ball at the ball hockey game, and King Charles will do that. So there you go. The thread that wove together our theme today was King. So to what Lisa was saying, she's called earlier and said maybe you could incentivize people to buy Farwell for Hire 50-50 tickets by saying if you get to $150,000 in the jackpot, you'll take off the crap that you're wearing. Because, you know, I'm wearing a pretty ugly hat right now. And I said if the jackpot gets to $120,000 or $60,000 take home, I will wear this hat again for another hour on the show, plus a scarf of the team that shall not be named. Well, what about this? What if you get the jackpot to $140,000 or $70,000 in the take home? What if then I wear the hat, the scarf, and the jersey, and I'll do it for the full show? The entire 4 hours, jersey, scarf, and hat of the team that shall not be named if the jackpot gets to $140,000 or $70,000 take home. And then, because of what Lisa said, if it gets to $150,000, I can take it off. How about that? Like, who wants to help me out here? What do you think? And remember, we're helping out cystic fibrosis research along the way. The steps coming up. I'll put on the scarf if we get to $120,000 in the jackpot. That'll be a hat and a scarf for an hour. If we get to $140,000 in the jackpot this week, I will wear the hat, the scarf, and the jersey for the entire show. You can watch me and mock me for 4 hours. I might even live stream the whole show on the internet so you can see it if you don't have a TV. Anyway, 140,000. That's the plateau we'll set. And I'll put on the jersey too. All of this is helping Farwell for Hire and funding for cystic fibrosis research. Get a ticket. Get in on the fun. Somebody's going to win a lot of money. Cystic fibrosis is going to earn a lot of money, and it's all thanks to you. CF5050.ca. CF5050.ca. I'm out of time for today. I'm going to go out and do some Farwell for Hiring, and then we'll come back tomorrow for more conversation, including a look ahead to the throne speech and the significance of having King Charles deliver it. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.